Some of the headlines about Russia and Ukraine over the past 24 hours have been concerning, and I want to hear now from you as to how involved you think the United States should be. 217-629-7970. I'm Greg Bishop at 811 on the WMAY Morning News feed. And you can also chime in via email. Just email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media. Just search out WMAY News or Bishop on Air, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we can connect that way. But again, with the headlines we've seen over the past 24 hours, I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number you can chime in on whether or not you think the U.S. should be involved and just how involved the United States should be in the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Now, some of the latest headlines are that Putin has ordered Russian troops into some Ukrainian breakaway regions. And if you go further than just what's reported by the Associated Press, for example, you see headlines like Putin signs decree recognizing the republics. Russia can build military bases in these regions under a new treaty. The United States signals that Putin's troops might not trigger sanctions. And also, the U.S. claims that Russia has a list of Ukrainians to, quote, be killed or sent to camps. While most Ukrainians don't believe Biden's warnings and distrust the West. So your thoughts on all of this, 217-629-7970. Good morning, you're on WMAY. Would have been. Let's go to this one. Good morning, you are on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg.
Hey.
The problem is we're not really involved as it is. The only time that we're involved in making this a good situation is when President Trump was in charge, when we had a strong leadership. Before that,
it's interesting that you note that President Trump's not in charge.
That's why we have weak leadership, and the Russians, Putin now knows that he can do this. Before, they had Barack Obama, and he went and had that incident in Crimea. And then during President Trump's tutelage, or his time, he didn't do anything because he knew we had a strong leader and a strong country. Now we have a weak, bumbling leader that's ruined our economy and strengthened the Russian economy, and he doesn't care because he knows that the United States is weak right now.
So, but back to the question. I'm not asking why you think Russia's doing what it's doing. How involved should the United States? Okay, so we're just not involved. All right, I got you down. 217-629-7970 is the phone number for you to chime in. Should the United States be involved, even through some of the proxies, like with NATO, for instance? Should the United States be involved with what's going on between Russia and Ukraine? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg.
Hey.
Yeah, our involvement should be null. It's pointless. I mean, I clearly see what's going on is that, once again, in a different land, the United States is trying to force policy upon another entity, and they want Ukraine in NATO. And so because we want that and they don't, I don't think that we need to get involved. I mean, we just pulled out of Afghanistan after, 20 years?
Right.
And then before that, it was Iraq and Afghanistan. On top of that, we are at one of the weakest moments in. How would most people?
Your phone kind of dropped out there for a moment. Say that again.
Real quick, Greg. How would most people in the United States feel if the shoe were on the other foot and Russia was doing this to Mexico? So it's simple. Putin does not want NATO as his bordering neighbor. That's their land. Let them hash it out. It's no more than a domestic dispute, and let them work it out. But to sacrifice American lives, possibly over this, I'm going to have to say no.
Got you down. 217-629-7970. Your thoughts. How involved should the United States be in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine after Russia announced that it's going to be sending what they called peacekeeping missions to two areas of the Ukraine that have declared their independence. You also got to consider other things that are happening. Of course, you've got Western leaders like the Prime Minister of the UK and even leaders in the European Union saying that they're going to issue sanctions over the actions that Russia's taken. The United States also looking to take some sanctions actions. And of course, sanctions in some perspective is an act of war in its own right. But you also have things that are going on with Iran and the ongoing crisis in Yemen with Saudi Arabia conducting war there and continued drone attacks, killing people in that country, while you also have China and the belligerence they've had towards Taiwan. With former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo set to visit Taiwan. That's likely gonna stoke some flames in that region as well. So it's not just what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. You've got all these other areas of conflict. And I think the last caller noted we just got out of Afghanistan after 20 years. And now we've got this on our plate. While we're dealing with a whole host of things domestically, from a porous southern border to what's going on with Canada up north and Justin Trudeau cracking down on peaceful protests to the ongoing issues of our economy and the rampant inflation that we're experiencing. So should the U.S. Be involved with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia? Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. No, we shouldn't be over there. And, really, everybody talks about the sanctions that we're going to impose on Russia. If we flip this thing around, have you looked at the sanctions that Russia has now imposed on the U.S.?
I have not. No.
With the thought of war, the stock market is up and down. The price of gas has gone up. On a bad economy, in a sense, with them just acting like there's a war going to happen, we're really paying the price for it without anything happening.
Yeah, domestically, obviously, energy prices are up. I mean, you're looking at what, $3.70 a gallon, maybe $3.65 a gallon. Could be up to $4 a gallon. Who knows when that's going to happen? I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Boy, where is the wisdom of good old Ron Paul in all of this? I mean, no entangling alliances, as far as getting involved in internal affairs of other nations. It's very simple. And then, so where's Ron Paul when you need him?
Well, he's no longer in Congress, and I think he speaks every once in a while on social media. But the foreign policy of intervention and meddling in foreign affairs. Well, we've got a whole host of problems here domestically. What do you say to those who call that isolationist, though?
I would respond with the same wisdom from Ron Paul. It says getting involved in other people's affairs and causing strife or, taking sides makes us more isolated, as you said about, Ukraine and how, just the trust level is not there. And so, of course, they're not going to believe anything that we say. And, just that makes us more isolated in the world, right? So, like, if we're the one who's calling the shots of, moving our shoulders, and trying to tell everybody what to do, well, that's what makes us an isolationist country.
So in a way, not acting in a trustworthy manner in the past 20 plus years has further isolated us from the rest of the world that looks at us with a critical lens. Appreciate the call. And I think I recognize the voice. You and I are going to have to get together for a beer. It's been way too long.
Yes, sir.
All right. I think you still have my number, so get a hold of me, all right? Let's make that happen.
You know it.
All right.
You know it.
Peace
I
out.
will.
All right.
A lot of good friends.
Right on. It is the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop, and taking your calls at 217-629-7970. How involved should the U.S. be in what's going on between Ukraine and Russia? Good morning.
Well, if we don't get more involved, it's going to get a lot worse. I mean, taking the Neville Chamberlain, Lindbergh view, maybe if we close our eyes, it'll all go away. It doesn't really work when we have production facilities in most parts of the world. We've sent we don't have the people to run the facilities here without bringing in immigrants, but we don't want to bring in immigrants. And the Ukraine right now, if people actually paid sense, the places that they're taking are militarily significant, I believe. I mean, it's for the deep sea ports for Ukraine, where basically before the Soviet Union was broken up, that's where they made all their subs, if I remember. Plus, it just gets really messy, and this is basically one step away from what Hitler did with the staging things on the border of Poland and invading Poland,
Yeah. But do we get involved, and our involvement possibly making it even more messy?
How is it going to make it more messy? It's basically one of the first steps to restoring the old Soviet Union. They've been stockpiling gold. If you are crazy enough to be a doomsday prepper, which I like selling to doomsday preppers, China and gold have been stockpiling gold for the last 3 to 5 years in huge amounts, which is what kept the price level. And which, if you know anything about World War II, countries that nobody wanted to deal with, like using gold and pulling it up, like Italy.
Well, and we saw similar things with countries that were looking to get away from using the dollar for oil. And some speculate that that's why we targeted Afghanistan. That's why we targeted Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11. That's why we targeted Libya, for instance. Some will say that, these list of 7 Arab countries were possibly looking to get away from trading oil in the dollar, and that could have been a reason. So, there's a lot of underlying things that are involved here, but all we're hearing, of course, is, that Russia's incursion on Ukraine's a problem, and the U.S. needs to be involved to some degree. While what's happening with the EU, they're looking at sanctions. The UK's looking at sanctions against Russia, and Russia's claiming that they're just trying to keep the peace. Should we be involved? Good morning.
Good morning, buddy. Hey, so I'm going to say we need to stick our nose out of it, because basically, like the 2 previous callers said, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years. We need to, as a lot of people would say, we need to step back and focus on me. That's exactly what the U.S. needs to do. We just need to take a step back, focus on ourselves, try to fix what's going on. And there's a whole reason why the media has now focused on this. And that's because, we got inflation, we got rising oil prices. So let's try to make sure that the U.S. people doesn't focus on all of, Biden's failures and, lack of leadership and lack of everything. So let's focus on, Russia.
So you're seeing this almost like a wag the dog scenario.
Yeah, it's a whole smoke piece is what's going on. They're trying to just sleight of hand us. And I think that that's exactly what's going on. And the last caller basically wants to be a Karen or a helicopter parent for them, and basically, micromanage everything that's going on. Whenever we do that, we're gonna be too thin, and all of a sudden, what happens if China
has an incursion on Taiwan, and we're looking at Russia and the Ukraine? So I think, there's a lot of different international things that are happening, and obviously, our involvement seems to be ramping up, at least with the rhetoric coming out of the White House. Appreciate everybody chiming in here on the WMAY Morning News.